the rubble of Israeli airstrikes.
To remove two Congress governments in Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh after one term, that's a worry for the Congress party, why they are not being able to buck anti-incumbency.
There's a different kind of a work culture in a counter-based party like BJP, which maybe the commentators are still getting used to.
There is a lot of statistical evidence to suggest that even gratuitous reverie is being rejected. So the AAP, I don't know if you know this statistic, has lost its deposits in all 88 seats of Rajasthan. In that particular seat, in that area, 555 votes, less than even Nota.
In Rajasthan and in Chhattisgarh, the Congress voted out. In Telangana, the BRS voted out. Congress coming to power in Telangana, but losing ground in key states that would have been important to set the tone for 2024.
No exit poll predicted the BJP victory in Chhattisgarh since the formation of the state. Clearly, the tribal vote has come back to the BJP, not just in Chhattisgarh, the tribal vote has come back in Madhya Pradesh and also in Rajasthan.
Good evening, you're watching The Nation at 5 right here on CNN News 18. My name is Toya Singh and we are starting the evening off with a big slice of breaking news. A story the entire country has been tracking. Reports on the underworld dawn, the 1993 serial bombs in Mumbai's mastermind. Dawood Ibrahim reports that he'd been admitted in a hospital in Karachi, that his condition was highly severe. Some reports even suggesting that he was dead. Those reports have been coming in since the morning. Now we're able to confirm to you that none of that is true. Take a look. This is a conversation. We'll connect with the reporter in just a second.
शकील, ये खबर एक बड़े जोरों से सोशल मीडिया पर इवन दुनिया भर के पत्रकार इस बारे में बोल रहे हैं कि दाऊद इब्राहिम को पॉइजन देकर के, जहर देकर के जो है उनको पहले भर्ती कराया गया और उसके बाद फिर उनको जो है उनकी डेथ हो गई। इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
टोटल फेक न्यूज़ है, कोई सच्चाई नहीं है और ये हर साल कोई ना कोई झूठ फैलाते रहते हैं लोग।
ये कल खबर आई है, उसमें उसके बाद आपकी दाऊद से बात हुई है या मुलाकात हुई है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है।
तो आप पूरी तरह से इसको
मुलाकात तो रोज होती है, उसमें कोई बात नहीं है।
तो आप पूरी तरह से कंफर्म कर रहे हो दाऊद बिल्कुल ठीक है?
1000% फिट है, बिल्कुल।
Okay, my colleague Siddhant is with us right now to bring us more details. Siddhant, this has perhaps been the top news that we've seen people around us discussing through the day today. Can you just tell our audiences that conversation that we just saw, Chota Shakil, bring us the context around him, his association with Dawood Ibrahim, and also tell us exactly what is he saying, that he's all right, sure, but is he in hospital or not? What do we have in terms of that?
Well, look, first of all, it's very important for viewers to understand that this entire rumor story came from Pakistan. Pakistan will perhaps make this allegation on Indian intelligence that they are sort of, flooding this rumor. But this has originated from Pakistan, and since last maybe 12 to 13 hours, it is trending on Twitter and various other social media platforms. But now, perhaps we are the first few channels to get a reaction from the horse's mouth, directly from the horse's mouth. Manoj Gupta, senior editor, investigations. He has spoken to Chota Shakil. Chota Shakil is the right-hand man of Dawood Ibrahim, and perhaps he is the most close confidant of Dawood Ibrahim. Now, in that small conversation that Manoj Gupta had with Chota Shakil, in that conversation, the questions were rightly framed while speaking to Chota Shakil, and he was asked that is there any poison given to him? Is he in hospital? Is he all right? Such questions were asked by Manoj Gupta, and Chota Shakil said it very clearly that these are just rumors. He's fit and fine. He's safe. Now, there could be multiple, angles to it, that why such stories are coming out in media, especially at this point in time. Also, it's very important to understand, Toya, whenever such stories come out, this is not the first time that the death rumor of Dawood Ibrahim has come out. In fact, we have been reporting it from last 5-6 years. There is a lot to do. There's a backstory which goes on, somewhere, and in this particular such a stories make the government of Pakistan uncomfortable, because they cannot officially respond to this story, because if they will respond, then that would be considered as accepting that Dawood Ibrahim is in Karachi, is in perhaps the safe house of ISI. So they never do that. The journalists in Pakistan also try to dig details, but even they also they cannot dig. So there's a lot to do when such stories come out. This time around, it would really be interesting to see that why this story has come out, and that too from a Pakistani journalist, from Pakistani media. None of the Indian journalists reported it first. Now Manoj Gupta is getting this version from Chota Shakil, in which he's denying. He's saying that he's fit and fine, and there is no problem to his health at all. Also remember, last year there was a statement given by Dawood's nephew to NIA, in which once again it was confirmed that Dawood is staying in Karachi. He was remarried and he has daughters and son from the second marriage.
Okay, Siddhant, just stay with us. Let me play out for our audiences once more that conversation that our investigative editor Manoj Gupta just brought us. Take a look.
शकील, ये खबर एक बड़े जोरों से सोशल मीडिया पर इवन दुनिया भर के पत्रकार इस बारे में बोल रहे हैं कि दाऊद इब्राहिम को पॉइजन दे करके, जहर दे करके जो है उनको पहले भर्ती कराया गया और उसके बाद फिर उनको जो है उनकी डेथ हो गई. इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
टोटल फेक न्यूज है वो, कोई सच्चाई नहीं है, और ये हर साल कोई ना कोई झूठ फैलाते रहते हैं लोग.
ये कल खबर आई है, उसमें उसके बाद आपकी दाऊद से बात हुई है या मुलाकात हुई है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से इसको
मुलाकात तो रोज होती है, उसमें कोई बात नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से कंफर्म कर रहे हो दाऊद बिल्कुल ठीक है?
1000% फिट है, बिल्कुल.
The former DGP of UP, Vikram Singh, he's with us right now on the phone. Sir, thank you for joining us here on CNN News 18. Sir, reports emerging, as our reporters are telling us for the umpteenth time, that Dawood Ibrahim had been hospitalized. These were reports coming in earlier today. Now, reporters here confirming that no such thing has happened. In the conversation they've had with Chota Shakil has said that nothing has happened to him. So can you just tell our audiences, when you hear a story like this, B, versions coming in, one, for example, from Chota Shakil, so what are your reactions? Dawood Ibrahim, years later, remaining India's most wanted gangster. So what are your reactions?
Good evening. Dawood Ibrahim happens to be India's most wanted terrorist and also the world's one of the most wanted criminals and the underworld don. And it is in his interest to spread disinformation and fake news to have an aura of mystery around him. I have dealt with this gang now for the last 20 years, and I know that it is a part of the modus operandi. And unless there is something authentic, because such people cannot just simply disappear into thin air. There are billions of dollars worth of property that would be in the reckoning. And rest assured, if he goes to the other world, which I'm sure there's a probability, and there can be no element of certainty on the basis of fake Twitter accounts and on the basis of fake other Instagram accounts, let the authenticity come. And also, the fact that the Pakistan government has clamped down the internet and has stopped the internet connectivity, that may be other reasons for rumor mongering or whatever it may be. But Dawood Ibrahim is one slippery customer that he is known for spreading rumors about himself, about his health, and also there could be an insidious plan also to give an indication that he is not healthy and perhaps he is in the other world. But till the time that we do not have authentic news, I think we should wait until the dust settles down.
All right, so Mr. Singh suggesting that we need to wait for more details. Let's go over to SP Vair, the former DGP for Jammu and Kashmir. He is with us right now. Sir, thank you for joining us here on CNN News 18. Sir, I do want to ask you, rumors like this being spread, we do have Chota Shakil, who our own investigative reporters have spoken to. He is saying that Dawood Ibrahim is totally all right. Sir, do you trust that? How do you respond to these rumors? Do you see them as just rumors, sir? And if so, what do you see as the intention behind spreading them?
See, you can't trust these underworld people, whether it is Chota Shakil or Dawood Ibrahim or whoever. But definitely in the Pakistan media there is a lot of news worry about Dawood Ibrahim getting poisoning and admitting in a hospital. I think we should wait for some time till there is confirmation. The Pakistan government will never admit as far as Dawood Ibrahim is concerned, because he has been their asset, and they have never accepted that he is on the Pakistan side, and they know he's a designated terrorist of India, most wanted person, and that is true of UN and US also. So I don't think Pakistan will ever admit, even if he dies. But at least from his relatives in India, if the information is correct that he is dead, then some information will come out from their family sources in India. That is the only way I think one can confirm. Pakistan officially will never own it, and let's wait for, I think, till it is the news is authentic. I think it's still rumor mongering, and his going would be, I think, a big news for not only India but this subcontinent, as his influence as underworld don has been in many sectors of India, including the film world and drug trade and all those things. He was responsible for killing of, if not thousands, hundreds of people in India. So I think let's wait for some time.
Okay, sir, thank you for joining us. Thank you for bringing us your expertise. Let's go over to Major General G.D. Bakshi. He's also with us. He's a defense expert. General, thank you for joining us here on CNN News 18. General, we spoke right now to SP Ved, and I do want to ask you, sir, he suggested, A, don't pay heed to anything, even something like Chota Shakil, any voice that's coming in right now. The only voice you should trust is voices coming in that might be relatives of Dawood Ibrahim's from here in India. Sir, do you agree with that assessment?
I totally agree with that assessment. You see, officially the government of Pakistan is in complete denial that he's ever been with them or stayed with them, whereas the fact is that he is one of the prime architects of the logistics support of terrorism that the ISI has been perpetuating in India, and he is the key logistics man, even behind the massive train bombings in Mumbai, which cost us almost about 700 lives. Then he was the prime architect, the supplier of the explosives and the detonators, etc. So the Pakistan government will never admit that he finally met his due desert. In Pakistan, they'll deny that he was ever there. Mr. Ved, I 100% agree with him. The confirmations would come from family sources here in India and abroad, and those who are in Dubai, that is from there it will come. We'll have to await the confirmation. I have also been hearing these rumors that he has been poisoned, that he has met his due deserts finally, and his sins have caught up with him. But like I said, I think it would be more prudent to wait and watch for the confirmation to be available from family sources, reliable sources, etc.
Okay. General, thank you for highlighting that for us. Let's take our audiences back to that conversation with his aide. After that, we'll go back to our reporter Siddhant, who's been bringing us context. Take a look.
शकील, ये खबर एक बड़े जोरों से सोशल मीडिया पर इवन दुनिया भर के पत्रकार इस बारे में बोल रहे हैं कि दाऊद इब्राहिम को पॉइजन दे करके, जहर दे करके जो है उनको पहले भर्ती कराया गया और उसके बाद फिर उनको जो है उनकी डेथ हो गई. इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
टोटल फेक न्यूज है वो, कोई सच्चाई नहीं है, और ये हर साल कोई ना कोई झूठ फैलाते रहते हैं लोग.
ये कल खबर आई है, उसमें उसके बाद आपकी दाऊद से बात हुई है या मुलाकात हुई है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से इसको
मुलाकात तो रोज होती है, उसमें कोई बात नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से कंफर्म कर रहे हो दाऊद बिल्कुल ठीक है?
1000% फिट है, बिल्कुल.
Okay, let's go back to my colleague Siddhant, who's been bringing us context on this entire story for the last few minutes. Siddhant, I just want to ask you, we've heard right now from 3 experts. Yeah. All 3 experts have said that in a case like Dawood Ibrahim's, it becomes very difficult for security agencies to ascertain something like this. A, there's the unreliability of information like this coming in from the government, the Pakistani government. B, Pakistani journalists. Though you pointed out that this is information that was broken by a Pakistani journalist. Yeah. One expert actually suggested that it's only family relatives of Dawood Ibrahim's in India India that could possibly give us the truth. Are those the guidelines that you would follow too when it comes to information like this?
Well, look, whenever such stories come out, then, what I have been seeing is that it's Chota Shakil who usually talks. He speaks to media and gives the position of D Company on any such a story. So Chota Shakil has been doing this from quite some time. Now, Toya, one thing which perhaps made this rumor, this buzz serious in nature, or in fact, some top officials on both sides of the border might have believed in this rumor or story for a while. The reason being that there is a perception which is being built against India by certain countries that India is involved in cross-border, covert operations. That perhaps could be the reason that, in last 24 hours, it's a top trend on Twitter, and in fact, experts, defense experts, military experts, they are also talking about it. So, in these times when there is a perception which is being built against India that India is doing some sort of a covert operations overseas, so that this can also be a possibility. So there are a lot of reasons to it, but since this denial has come from Chota Shakil, who happens to be a right hand man of Dawood Ibrahim and somebody very close to Dawood Ibrahim, point number one. Point number two, we can never expect any sort of a denial or confirmation from the authorities in Pakistan, because they will never accept this, that Dawood Ibrahim is in Pakistan, because that would be a setback for them. Third, as far as their families in India is concerned, they do tell things to Mumbai police, which is the first authority for them, off the record, nothing on record. But they will never come out in media and issue a statement or something, because they also know that they are under surveillance and their phones and the other devices are being watched. So the only reaction that we have is of a Chota Shakil, and probably that is the only reaction right now, or perhaps a response that we can get from Dawood camp.
Okay, Siddhant, thank you for highlighting that for us. One last time, let's play out that conversation that took place.
शकील, ये खबर एक बड़े जोरों से सोशल मीडिया पर इवन दुनिया भर के पत्रकार इस बारे में बोल रहे हैं कि दाऊद इब्राहिम को पॉइजन देकर के, जहर देकर के जो है उनको पहले भर्ती कराया गया और उसके बाद फिर उनको जो है उनकी डेथ हो गई. इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
टोटल फेक न्यूज है वो, कोई सच्चाई नहीं है, और ये हर साल कोई ना कोई झूठ फैलाते रहते हैं लोग.
ये कल खबर आई है, उसमें उसके बाद आपकी दाऊद से बात हुई है या मुलाकात हुई है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से इसको
मुलाकात तो रोज होती है, उसमें कोई बात नहीं है.
तो आप पूरी तरह से कंफर्म कर रहे हो दाऊद बिल्कुल ठीक है?
1000% फिट है, बिल्कुल.
Okay, a security expert and analyst Pratikrit Payne is also with us right now on the phone. Let's go over to him to understand more. Pratikrit, if I could just ask you, our reporter Siddhant, when we asked him this question, what could be the possible motive when it comes to spreading a rumour like this, if we do take this to be a rumour? Something Siddhant was pointing to was a alleged wave of countries trying to point a finger at India's involvement in cross-border terrorism, in cross-border attacks, and in cross-border attacking of people in other countries. In this case, Dawood Ibrahim would then become someone who India could possibly have targeted. That's essentially the assertion. Pratikrit, do you agree with that analysis?
Well, over the last few months, we have heard about this whole issue of unknown gunmen and unknown persons wreaking havoc in Pakistan. So from that context, given the fact that large number of terror masterminds have got neutralized by somebody, we don't know who, the issue of Dawood Ibrahim being on target cannot be completely ignored. But again, the issue really is, as was also rightly mentioned, that Dawood Ibrahim is such an enigma for the deep state of Pakistan that they would neither confirm nor deny this report ever, because confirming it would mean acknowledging that he has always been over there. That they would never do. And then for the deep state of Pakistan, keeping the ghost of Dawood Ibrahim alive with an aura of invincibility is very, very important. But from what I can understand, from my understanding of through the open source information that has generally been available over the last few years, he has not been in the best of health. So whether it is
poisoning or some other ailment or anything, the potential possibility of he being in a confinement and under extreme treatment by the best of possible, doctors in Pakistan cannot be ruled out. See, we need to, must understand that Pakistan would neither let him go off, given the enormity of information that he is privy to. So, this is an issue which will never be confirmed, nor be denied by the deep state of Pakistan, and it would remain, in something which will be in the realm of speculation forever. However, I reiterate, the manner in which we have seen in the last few months, the number of times terror masterminds have been neutralized by unknown gunmen. If something has happened in that context in this regard, we should not be entirely surprised, because it actually binds the chain of links of events. Whether it has actually happened or not, we don't know. We can only speculate. But this time, the potential possibility of the speculation being on the borderline of a reality remains and seems to be more profound.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bain, for bringing us these details. Okay, for our audiences, let's take you one more time to hear that conversation. This is a conversation our colleague Manoj Gupta brought with the aide of Dawood Ibrahim, Chota Shakil. Take a look at this conversation, then we'll head into a very short break.
शकील, ये खबर एक बड़े जोरों से सोशल मीडिया पर इवन दुनिया भर के पत्रकार इस बारे में बोल रहे हैं कि दाऊद इब्राहिम को पॉइजन देकर के, जहर देकर के जो है उनको पहले भर्ती कराया गया और उसके बाद फिर उनको जो है उनकी डेथ हो गई। इसके बारे में आपका क्या कहना है?
टोटल फेक न्यूज देखो, कोई सच्चाई नहीं है और ये हर साल कोई ना कोई झूठ फैलाते रहते हैं लोग।
ये कल खबर आई है, उसमें उसके बाद आपकी दाऊद से बात हुई है या मुलाकात हुई है?
हाँ, बिल्कुल बिल्कुल, इसमें कोई शक नहीं है।
तो आप पूरी तरह से इसको
मुलाकात तो रोज होती है, उसमें कोई बात नहीं है।
तो आप पूरी तरह से कंफर्म कर रहे हो दाऊद बिल्कुल ठीक है?
1000% फिट है, बिल्कुल।
All right, we are heading into a very short break right here on The Nation at 5. In just a few minutes from now, we will return with all of the country's top stories. Do stay with us right here on CNN News 18.
भारत के नव
vastly different version. The symptoms are pretty much the same. The 99 out of 100 really did not really require hospital care. And a small percentage actually requires it. But the problem with this enormous numbers of people are infected. Yes, that translates to larger numbers trickling into hospital. And that's the point here about being a little careful. So if you're having a fever, stay home, don't mingle. And unless absolutely necessary, don't go to hospital. Especially social visits to hospital are a part of culture in India. No, hospitals are not places for social visits. You could make your social visit by a phone call or a video call. Please don't go to hospitals just for social visits. Go only if absolutely necessary. And if you go, wear a mask.
My one last question. That is, we are seeing for past 2-3 years, we are seeing multiple variants, sub-variants of COVID-19. Will this keep continuing? And are our vaccines, stable enough to fight these variants? Do you think there is a need for a booster dose for the population, like a fourth or third booster dose?
I understand. Now, COVID is yet another cyclical disease that has arrived on the planet. There are so many other viral infections that come and go in waves. For example, influenza and para-influenza. They're all cyclical. In other words, there's high tide and there's low tide. COVID gave India a low tide of around 7 months. So we had a good 7 months where we could mingle freely and really it did not create a burden. For the next couple of months, we can expect a surge for COVID. You asked about vaccination. Yes, vaccination had a great role, especially in the early part of the pandemic when none of us had any immune memory to this new virus. And getting infected to get memory was not a smart idea because the first version created a lot of deaths in the process of achieving that. So vaccination gave us a safer option of getting an immune memory, if you will, and the immune memory that we got is long-lasting. which means that even if our antibody levels drop, if we get an infection, this memory will kick in and it will produce an essential immune response, which will keep us safe. Whether a booster dose is necessary, that's a long question to answer. But to put it very briefly, the vaccines that are available or were used in India were based on the first version, and the version that's circulating now is vastly different. And that being said, even updated vaccines that the US made, the XBB.1.5 monovalent booster, this new variant is even evading that. We are getting reports trickling in about this variant infecting people who've just had a booster dose. So boosters may not necessarily stop the infection, but for the extremely vulnerable people, it may improve a level of protection. That's what the Americans believe. From India's perspective, I believe we are well placed in terms of past vaccination. We are a very, very well vaccinated nation. On top of that, we have people who have survived natural infection also have antibodies and immune memory. So chances are that we can continue with whatever we are doing right now in terms of, let's say, non-pharmaceutical interventions, which basically means mass social distancing, cough etiquette, hand washing, avoiding crowded gatherings, improving ventilation of indoor settings, and so on.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for answering all the questions, Dr. Rajeev Jaydevan. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm joined by Dr. Rajeev Jaydevan, who is the IMA COVID task member, also belongs to Kerala. So he will be able to tell us more about JN.1 that is doing the rounds in Kerala. One case has in fact been detected. So I'm joined by Dr. Rajeev Jaydevan. Thank you for joining with us. And starting with, what is really the situation on ground in Kerala? One case of JN.1 has been detected from Trivandrum. So how worrisome is the situation?
We have been tracking the pandemic from before it entered India in 2020. And over the past couple of months, we have seen an uptick in respiratory illnesses, which is cough, cold, breathing difficulty kind of illness. But on testing, especially in the early part of November or in October, we really did not see many COVID patients at all, apart from one or two. But towards the end of November, cases started coming in. In other words, with the same symptomatology, we were finding they were belonging to COVID rather than due to influenza. So, in other words, people with these symptoms are increasingly found to be due to COVID. That's the way we see it on the ground. Most individuals are not requiring hospital care. They could be without symptoms. For instance, somebody who enters a transplant facility gets tested for safety purposes, and they may turn out to be positive and discover that they've had no symptoms. They've had no symptoms. Likewise, the younger and healthier people are having what is typically a few days of severe body pain, tiredness, unable to go to work, a bit of headache, runny nose, sore throat. Not so much of cough, not so much of pneumonia. We're not really seeing pneumonia now, unlike during the Delta period in 2021, that was carnage. Now, over the last few days, the number of cases have gone up. But if you look at a situation on the ground in tertiary centers, people are coming in with fever and other symptoms like before. But the number of COVID patients is not overwhelming. But that being said, let me say this. The reported numbers always depend on testing. And specific forms of testing like RT-PCR and government facilities get reported. Antigen tests done at home are not tested, are not reported. Most people are not keen to test anymore. Doctors are not keen to test anymore because it may not make a difference in management and it only adds to the expense. So all of these things are factored.
No, are you saying that this variant is evading the RT-PCR test? Can this be detected with the RT-PCR test itself?
No. In fact, RT-PCR test will pick up the variant. It is not evading the RT-PCR. But the point is that if you look at people who are coming in with symptoms of COVID or symptoms like COVID or respiratory illness, we were not seeing COVID 2 months ago, but we are seeing COVID now. That's the point. The second point, as you asked about evasion, yes, JN.1 is profoundly immune evasive, which basically means that it will escape, it will jump over the fence. If your fence is what you built with your vaccination and having survived natural infection, 1 or 2 or even 3 bouts of COVID, this variant leaps over it like it never existed. So that is really what we're seeing. So just because you've had vaccination or boosting or whether you've been past infected, please don't think that it will not come to you. it could come to you quite easily. And how does it come to you? It comes to you through social gatherings, indoor crowded settings, when we mingle with people who have fever and symptoms such as this. Yes, that is typically how it spreads. And people in the old age group must be a little careful, because they may end up in the hospital because they have conditions that may destabilize.
All right. What do we know about the symptoms of JN.1, and what are the precautions that one can take when it...
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5 right here on CNN News 18. We're now taking you to breaking news we've got coming in regarding the TMC MP Mahua Moitra, who you remember was expelled from the Lok Sabha on December 8th. This was in a follow-up to the cash for query controversy that we'll bring you more details about later. But what has she moved the Delhi High Court in reference to? The Parliamentary Housing Committee has sent her a notice asking her to vacate her house. It's in that regards that she's moved the Delhi High Court against this notice. We'll have a reporter join us in just a second to bring us more context on this entire story. You might remember that Mahua Moitra had essentially argued that the Lok Sabha had no right to expel her. She was arguing that the ethics committee that made that decision didn't have the right to expel anyone. She's continued to argue her innocence in the cash for query controversy. Now our colleague, our legal correspondent Ananya Bhatnagar is with us right now to bring us more context. Ananya, can you tell our audiences in this particular story exactly what is Moitra's contention to the Parliamentary Housing Committee's notice?
Well, remember that the Estates Department of the Government of India or the Parliament has in fact issued a notice to Mahua Moitra to vacate that particular house after her expulsion from the Parliament, in the cash for query scam, if you remember. And very, very categorically this notice has been sent to Mahua Moitra, challenging that particular notice. She has knocked the doors of the Delhi High Court, seeking interim relief of staying this particular notice, saying that the whole and sole issue of whether she is an expelled leader or not, she is expelled parliamentarian or not, that is pending adjudication before the Supreme Court of India. She had challenged her expulsion from the Parliament before the topmost court of the country, and in that circumstance, in saying that she is an unauthorized occupant of that particular house is something that is not correct, and that's exactly why Mahua Moitra should not be asked to vacate this particular house until and unless the Supreme Court actually decides on whether or not Mahua Moitra is an expelled leader, whether her expulsion from the Parliament is something that was correct in law or not, is something that Mahua Moitra has told. Because now what we are hearing is that the matter is listed, likely to be listed for hearing tomorrow. Whether or not the High Court would be granting any kind of a relief, whether the High Court would be taking note of what Mahua Moitra's submission would be, or would Mahua Moitra be able to secure some relief from the High Court, is something that we'll have to wait and watch for.
All right, Ananya, thank you for bringing us those details. We're now shifting focus to a different story. High drama taking place in the capital today through the day, as the number of MPs suspended in the Lok Sabha and in the Rajya Sabha has now increased. 92 MPs in total, 46 in each house is where the numbers stand as we speak. Remember, opposition MPs continue to demand that the Home Minister, the Prime Minister come into the Parliament and address the parliamentary security breach that took place a few days ago, in which two men entered into the Parliament with canisters shouting slogans against the government. Now we bring you more context on all of these developments. What you can see on your screens right now are visuals of those MPs who've been suspended outside in a protest. Piyush Goyal, Union Minister, with this response and reaction. Take a look.
के बार बार अनुरोध पर विपक्ष के नेताओं तक ने उनकी बात नहीं सुनी, वेल में आए, अपनी सीट से निकल के हर प्रकार का व्यवधान किया। और यही नहीं, कई माननीय सदस्य तो प्लेकार्ड लेके, जिसके बारे में माननीय स्पीकर के समक्ष और माननीय चेयरमैन के समक्ष सर्वदलीय बैठक में ये तय हुआ था कि कोई भी पार्टी, चाहे सत्तारूढ़ पार्टी हो चाहे विपक्ष हो, कोई भी माननीय सदस्य कभी भी पार्टी लेके, प्लेकार्ड लेके सदन के कार्यवाही को बिगाड़ेगा नहीं, सदन में इस प्रकार का व्यवहार नहीं करेगा। उसके बावजूद आज कई माननीय सदस्य प्लेकार्ड लेके दोनों हाउस, दोनों सदनों में आए। बार बार अनुरोध किया गया, माननीय सदस्यों को अपील करी गई कि वो अपने सीट पर बैठ के बोले, बार बार अपील किया गया कि प्लेकार्ड लेके ना आए, उसके बावजूद जिस प्रकार का व्यवहार रहा उसके चलते आज माननीय लोकसभा अध्यक्ष को 33 माननीय सांसदों को सस्पेंड करना पड़ा इस सेशन के आखिरी दिन तक, और राज्यसभा में माननीय 34 सांसदों को सस्पेंड करना पड़ा.
Okay, let's go over to my colleague Payal, who's with us right now to bring us more context. Payal has been bringing us all of these developments since the morning today. Payal, let me just start you off by asking, these are historic numbers, is that correct?
Probably in the history of Parliament, not so many suspensions have happened on a single day, and today we've seen members being suspended from both the Lok Sabha as well as the Rajya Sabha. 33 from the Lok Sabha, 34 from the Rajya Sabha. In fact, 11 also included other ones against whom the privilege motion will be moved. That's the number that we're looking at. So 33 in Lok Sabha and 34 in the Rajya Sabha along with 11. That makes it a total of 45 actions against MPs in the Rajya Sabha itself. Unprecedented scenarios as the opposition party MPs refuse to budge, refuse to relent from the stand that they are asking for a response coming in from the Home Minister, and they are basically saying that if they have to ask a government response on a serious issue like this, and if they have to be suspended, that so be it. They will be answerable to the people of this country and not to the government, which is muzzling their voices throughout, not just on the floor of the House but also outside as well.
Okay, Payal, I think we've actually lost our connection with you. I'm going to go over right now to Abdul Khaleque. He's a Congress MP who was in fact one of those who's been suspended. These numbers that we're talking about right now. He's with us right now. Let's go over to him. Mr. Khaleque, sir, thank you for joining us here on CNN News 18. Thank you for taking out the time. Sir, first, your reaction to being suspended.
देखिए, हमने क्या मांगा था? जो 13 दिसंबर के जो इंसिडेंट है, जो संसद सुरक्षा जो व्याहत हुआ, हमने यही मांगा था सरकार के, जो सरकार के गृह मंत्री सदन में आए, और उस दिन क्या हुआ था, कैसे वो इंट्रूडर आ पाया सदन में, कैसे वो गैस कैन लेके आ पाया, किसका गलती के लिए आ पाया, संसद क्यों सुरक्षित नहीं है, संसद जहां सुरक्षित नहीं है देश भी सुरक्षित नहीं है, क्यों देश सुरक्षित नहीं है, इसका जवाब गृह मंत्री जी सदन में दे. हमारे ये सवाल का जवाब देना तो दूर की बात है, हमारे 13 सांसद को पहले ही निलंबित किया था. हमने ये जब जवाब मांगना, ये जो कंटिन्यू किया, हमने जब बोलते रहा ये अब जवाब दो, उन्होंने आज हमारे 31 सांसद को लोकसभा के, राज्यसभा में हमको सस्पेंड किया, और हमारे 3 सांसद इंक्लूडिंग मेरे को वो के जयकुमार, विजय, वसंत और मेरे को वो हम लोग को तो प्रिविलेज कमेटी में भेज दिया. अगर संसद में हमारे आवाज, विपक्ष के आवाज नहीं सुनते हैं, हम तो उनको सुनाना होगा, क्योंकि हमारा आवाज देश का आवाज है. देश का आवाज तो हम सरकार को पहुंचाना होगा. गृह मंत्री जी सदन के बाहर कुछ बोलते हैं, प्रधानमंत्री जी सदन के बाहर कुछ बोलते हैं, सदन में आके क्यों नहीं बोलते? हम चाहते हैं दोनों सदन में आए और सदन के पटल में वो अपना जवाब रखिए, हम चाहते हैं. लेकिन सरकार इस सवाल से भाग रहा है. सरकार सदन में जवाब देने चाहे है, उनका मेजॉरिटी है, उनका संख्या गरिष्ठता है, इसलिए वो तानाशाही चला रहा है. हम ये तानाशाही के खिलाफ है, और ये हमारे बात हम जनता तक ले जाना चाहता हूँ.
खलीक जी मैं आपसे ये जरूर जानना चाहती हूँ, जो स्पीकर थे ओम बिरला जी, उन्होंने एक चिट्ठी लिखा. उस चिट्ठी में उन्होंने कहा कि एक हाई पावर्ड कमेटी इसी चीज़ की जांच कर रही है, उस जांच के लिए पहले हम रुकते हैं. सो उस पर आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया थी? क्योंकि उनका ये कहना था कि पार्लियामेंट का सेशन तो मतलब होना ही होना है, आप अभी उसे रोक रहे हो.
ना, वो जांच से हम इसलिए सेटिस्फाई नहीं हूँ, वो बनावटी जांच होगा, वो जांच का रिपोर्ट अच्छा नहीं होगा. हम चाहते हैं एक जो सदन के, जो दोनों सदन का सारे हमारे एक्सपर्ट मेंबर है, कोई पुलिस से जुड़े हैं, कोई कानून से जुड़े हैं, विभिन्न क्षेत्रों का कोई एक्सपर्ट मेंबर है, सारे मेंबर को लेकर, ऑल पार्टी का मेंबर को लेकर एक जांच कमेटी बनाए. वो जांच कमेटी से सत्य निकाल आएगा. लेकिन जो अभी जो जांच कमेटी बनाया गया, इससे सत्य निकाल आएगा हमें नहीं लगता है, इसीलिए वो जांच हमें मंजूर नहीं है. और स्पीकर जी से हम गुजारिश करता हूँ, क्यों गृह मंत्री जी को क्यों ना बोले, गृह मंत्री जी आना चाहिए सदन में, आके जवाब देना चाहिए.
खालिक जी एक और प्रश्न आपसे ये पूछना है हमें,
क्या दिक्कत है?
खालिक जी एक और प्रश्न ये पूछना है हमें आपसे कि उनका जब ये कहना है कि अभी 3-4 दिन ही है बाकी सेशन के, काम होने दो, उस पे आपकी क्या प्रतिक्रिया है सर?
जब सुरक्षित नहीं है सदन में गैस का कैन लेके आ गया, आपने महुआ मोइत्रा को क्यों सस्पेंड किया? आपने महुआ मोइत्रा को इसलिए सस्पेंड किया, पासआउट शेयर किया था किसी के साथ। अभी प्रताप सिन्हा जो बीजेपी के सांसद, उन्होंने वो इंट्रूडर को पास दिया, जो इंट्रूडर गैस कैन लेके आया, उनको शोकॉज भी नहीं किया, उनको कोई एथिक्स कमेटी में या प्रिविलेज कमेटी में रेफर नहीं किया, कोई पूछताछ भी नहीं किया। वो सदन इसे चलते रहेगा और हम कुछ नहीं बोलेंगे, ऐसा हो सकता है? प्रताप सिन्हा को क्यों पूछताछ नहीं किया, उनको कोई कमेटी में क्यों रेफर नहीं किया, उनको क्यों जवाबदेही नहीं किया? आप सोचिए, अगर ये पास कोई विपक्ष का सांसद देते, अगर ये पास कोई मुसलमान सांसद देते, ये पास कोई ईसाई या सिख सांसद देते, तब हालत कैसा होने वाला था? जरा तो सोचिए, जब बोलने वाला था ये जिहादी आ गया, जब बोलने वाला था ये आतंकवाद हो गया, अभी पास बीजेपी का सांसद दिया, अभी सब चुपचाप है, अभी बोलना लगा हम तो अपना क्षेत्र का लोगों को देना होगा। अगर क्षेत्र का लोग आके संसद का सुरक्षा को क्षति करेगा, तब हम क्या करेंगे? हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे क्या? इसीलिए ये बात प्रताप सिन्हा को गिरफ्तार करना चाहिए, उनका खिलाफ कार्रवाई होना चाहिए, यही बात हम उठा रहा हूँ।
खालिक जी, एक आखिरी प्रश्न है आपके लिए, आप हमें ये बताएंगे सर, अभी INDIA अलायंस का प्लान क्या है? 3-4 दिन ही बाकी हैं, प्रोटेस्ट हमने देख लिए, बट आगे 3-4 दिनों में हम क्या देखेंगे सर? और सस्पेंशन देखेंगे या कोई और प्लान है? देखिए,
वो तो हमारा लीडरशिप डिसाइड करेगा, कल हमारा सारे विपक्ष का बैठक होगा, उसमें क्या सिद्धांत होगा, क्या डिसीजन होगा, फैसला होगा, वो तो बाद में बता पाएंगे, वो हमारा नेतृत्व तय करेगा। लेकिन हम चाहते हैं सरकार सदन में जवाब दे। सरकार जवाब क्यों नहीं देगा? सरकार जवाब से क्यों भागते हैं? सरकार सदन से क्यों भागते हैं? जब सदन चल रहा है, सबसे बेहतर फोरम तो पार्लियामेंट ही है, संसद ही है। वो संसद में गृह मंत्री जी क्यों नहीं आते हैं? प्रधानमंत्री जी क्यों नहीं आते हैं? यही हमारा सवाल है। आप भी सरकार को पूछना चाहिए, आप संसद में क्यों जवाब देना नहीं चाहते?
Okay, Khaleque ji, हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए धन्यवाद. That was one suspended Congress MP that we just heard from. His point that until we hear from the Home Minister and the Prime Minister himself, a letter from Om Birla, the Speaker, is not enough. We need to hear from the heads. Now, we're going to bring you more context. These are more replies that have come in from other suspended MPs and other parliamentarians. Take a look.
जब पुराना बिल्डिंग से नया पार्लियामेंट बिल्डिंग जब गए हैं, जो भी संसदीय पार्टी के बैठक में सभी पार्टी के लीडर्स ने बोले, इस नया बिल्डिंग में हम प्लेकार्ड्स डिस्प्ले नहीं करेंगे और इन डिस्प्ले नहीं करेंगे, वेल के अंदर नहीं जाएंगे, अगर प्रोटेस्ट करना है तो अपना अपना स्थानों में खड़ा होकर प्रोटेस्ट करेंगे, ऐसा सभी लोग सहमति हुआ है, सभी लोगों का निर्णय हुआ है। मगर वो सहमति को वायलेट करते हुए आज फिर लगातार इस सेशन में, इससे पहले सेशन में भी जो पुराने आदत, विपक्षों का पुराने आदत है, वही आदत से फिर सेशन को होने नहीं देना।
Altogether, today 33 members of parliament. Rajya Sabha 1 member. In Lok Sabha 33 today, on the other day 14 people. So 47 plus 1, 48 MPs have been suspended. I don't think so, but it has to run peacefully. It all depends upon the behavior of the ruling party. It's most unfortunate. Never in the history for the past so many years, ever since the establishment of the Indian Parliament, never in the history these such things have happened. And the response of the government is very, very poor.
Okay, we're now moving to breaking news coming from a entirely different region, Uttar Pradesh. We're taking you to Mathura and developments taking place in Allahabad as we speak. These are developments in the Krishna Janmabhoomi case. We'll bring you more updates as we speak. We're learning that the next hearing is going to be taking place on Jan 11th. This is in view of the Supreme Court directions. We're going to have our legal correspondent bringing us context on this. Ananya, over to you.
Well, definitely, people were waiting, and if you can see behind me, these are the petitioners who are still petitioners and the devotees of Lord Krishna who are still here and, were wanting actually to hear from the Allahabad High Court, a favourable order from the Allahabad High Court. but definitely the Allahabad High Court has very categorically made it clear and has abundantly clear that this would now be delayed a little more because the High Court has said that since the directions of the Supreme Court has now come in and since the directions of the Supreme Court were there that it will be hearing that matter on in fact January 9th. The Allahabad High Court has adjourned these proceedings, accepted the demand of in fact the Shahi Idgah Mosque Committee and has said that it will now be hearing the particular matter on January 11. So if at all there is no favourable order from the Supreme Court for the Muslim side, then the Allahabad High Court would be dealing with the modalities of this particular survey and the appointment of the Advocate Commissioner. Apart from that, what is also very clear is that at this point of time no survey is going to take place because the Supreme Court is seized of the matter, and we'll have to see as to how things pan out of the Supreme Court as well on January 9 when the matter is heard by the topmost court of the country. So we'll have to wait and watch for all of that, but definitely the people here were hopeful of a very favourable order, but now today the Allahabad High Court has adjourned these particular proceedings.
Okay, Ananya, thank you for bringing us those details. It's time right now for a short break. On the other side, in just a few minutes, more of the country's top stories. This right here is The Nation at 5. We'll see you in a few minutes.
Brought to you by...
Because we are seeing that this is the same variant that is doing the rounds in US and Europe.
Yes, all around the world, JN.1 is the fastest growing variant, which means it was able to outnumber and outcompete its other cousins, if you will. Say XBB was dominating India and the rest of the world until sometime in August. And until then, XBB started weakening, and then JN.1 is increasing now. In terms of symptoms, it can range from no symptoms. For instance, as I mentioned, somebody who walks into a transplant facility gets tested for COVID just for safety reasons. They may discover that they're COVID positive without really having symptoms. Secondly, as I mentioned, younger and healthier people tend to have flu-like symptoms, which is not cold, but severe body ache, stopping them from going to work for at least a few days. And the third category are people with other disease conditions who that tend to worsen, requiring some hospital care. And the fourth category really is people who desaturate, which basically means the oxygen levels drop. They end up in the ICU requiring oxygen and so on. But that's a tiny minority so far. So we have to wait and see how the season pans out. It's early days now. December is coming. We are halfway through December. Holiday season is kicking in. A lot of people are visiting family from abroad and from other parts of the country. And this is a season where people travel all around the world.
So in the statement, the Health Ministry and the Kerala Health Department basically said that the 70-year-old woman from Trivandrum who has been detected with this variant has in fact recovered since then. So can we say that this is a mild variant and we can't, there is no adverse effect to this variant?
Yeah, that's been the story of COVID from the beginning, in fact. If you take even the most lethal variants like Delta or the first version, when we had no immunity, the number of people who died was relatively small compared to the number of people infected. In other words, a massive number of people were infected, and that is really what translated to a large number of deaths. So, point I'm making is, we take 100 people who get COVID, only one or two will have very, very severe disease. So, likewise, as of now, when Omicron has, since Omicron has come late 2021, JN.1 also is a version of Omicron. So it's a different version of Omicron, vastly different version. The symptoms are pretty much the same. The 99 out of 100 really do not really require hospital care. And a small percentage actually requires it. But the problem with this enormous numbers of people are infected. Yes, that translates to larger numbers trickling into hospital. And that's the point here about being a little careful. So if you're having a fever, stay home, don't mingle, and unless absolutely necessary, don't go to hospital. Especially social visits to hospital are a part of culture in India. No, hospitals are not places for social visits. You could make your social visit by a phone call or a video call. Please don't go to hospitals just for social visits. Go only if absolutely necessary. And if you go, wear a mask.
My one last question, that is, we are seeing for past 2-3 years, we are seeing multiple variants, sub-variants of COVID-19. Will this keep continuing? And are our vaccines stable enough to fight these variants, do you think there is a need for a booster dose for the population, like a fourth or third booster dose?
I understand. Now, COVID is yet another cyclical disease that has arrived on the planet. There are so many other viral infections that come and go in waves. For example, influenza and para-influenza. They're all cyclical. In other words, there's high tide and there's low tide. COVID gave India a low tide of around 7 months. So we had a good 7 months where we could mingle freely, and really it did not create a burden. For the next couple of months, we can expect a surge for COVID. You asked about vaccination. Yes, vaccination had a great role, especially in the early part of the pandemic when none of us had any immune memory to this new virus. And getting infected to get memory was not a smart idea, because the first version created a lot of deaths in the process of achieving that. So vaccination gave us a safer option of getting an immune memory, if you will, and the immune memory that we got is long-lasting, which means that even if our antibody levels drop, if we get an infection, this memory will kick in and it will produce an essential immune response, which will keep us safe. Whether a booster dose is necessary, that's a long question to answer. But to put it very briefly, the vaccines that are available or were used in India were based on the first version, and the version that's circulating now is vastly different. And that being said, even updated vaccines that the US made, the XBB.1.5 monovalent booster, this new variant is even evading that. We are getting reports trickling in about this variant infecting people who've just had a booster dose. So boosters may not necessarily stop the infection, but for the extremely vulnerable people, it may improve a level of protection. That's what the Americans believe. From India's perspective, I believe we are well placed in terms of past vaccination. We are a very, very well vaccinated nation. On top of that, we have people who have survived natural infection also have antibodies and immune memory. So chances are that we can continue with whatever we are doing right now in terms of let's say non-pharmaceutical interventions, which basically means mass social distancing, cough etiquette, hand washing, avoiding crowded gatherings, improving ventilation of indoor settings, and so on.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for answering all the questions, Dr. Rajeev J. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm joined by Dr. Rajeev J. Devan, who is the IMA COVID task member, also belongs to Kerala. So he will be able to tell us more about JN.1 that is doing the rounds in Kerala. One case has in fact been detected. So I'm joined by Dr. Rajeev J. Devan. Thank you for joining with us. And starting with, what is really the situation on ground in Kerala? One case of JN.1 has been detected from Trivandrum. So how worrisome is the situation?
We have been tracking the pandemic from before it entered India in 2020. And over the past couple of months, we have seen an uptick in respiratory illnesses, which is cough, cold, breathing difficulty kind of illness. But on testing, especially in the early part of November or in October, we really did not see many COVID patients at all, apart from one or two. But towards the end of November, cases started coming in. In other words, with the same symptomatology, we were finding they were belonging to COVID rather than due to influenza. So, in other words, people with these symptoms are increasingly found to be due to COVID. That's the way we see it on the ground. Most individuals are not requiring hospital care. They could be without symptoms. For instance, somebody who enters a transplant facility gets tested for safety purposes, and they may turn out to be positive and discover that they've had no symptoms. They've had no symptoms. Likewise,
Welcome back. You're watching The Nation at 5 right here on CNN News 18. We're now bringing you some breaking news regarding international developments. These are developments taking place across the border in Pakistan, where we're learning that Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir has made an official visit to Washington. This is his first official visit, though it is customary for Pakistani Army chiefs to travel to Washington. Now we have for you the key pointers in terms of the conversations he had. He met a number of senior American officials, key among which was the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken. Now the messages he was conveyed and what the Pakistani establishment is going to do with them. We're going to take a deeper dive into that. Very quickly on the screen behind me, let's take a look at what those messages messages were. This meeting, as you can see, with the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. Number one, right on top of the agenda, in relation to India, they've been told trade with India and the maintaining of peace are both a top priority. The maintaining of peace needs to be assured on the LOC. Now, this is very important. China. Remember, China and Pakistan have a long-standing alliance, one that stretches back decades. The economic coordination also has been playing out since the 1970s, but it's really in 2015 that you saw China amp up its investment. The United States saying that they need to restrict their Chinese investment. They need to keep it to the economic corridor that China and Pakistan have been developing over the last few years, and no security coordination. So a green light of sorts been given to economic coordination, but very particularly not security coordination. Also avoiding all access to the Chinese outpost that's present in Pakistan. And we'll move very quickly. I believe there is one more point over here. They have also said that they are going to support the Pakistani establishment in its action and operations against the Taliban-e-Tehreek Pakistan. All right, we're going to go over to Siddhant. He's with us to bring us a lot more in terms of context on this entire story. Siddhant, I know there is an aspect relating to India in this entire story, but I want to get to that in just a second. If you can just tell our audiences first, the United States and Pakistan and China. These are two relationships that Pakistan has almost had to balance while the United States and China work out their relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
So to understand the story, first tell us, where does Pakistan's economic and military relationship with China stand right now, and how is this going to be affected by what the United States has just said?
Well, look, this particular visit is significant in a way because Mr. Munir is seen as somebody who is not very pro-America in terms of his background, because his predecessors were some or the other way were inclined towards the Western countries in America. Point number one. Point number two, this particular visit is happening at a time when America is concerned about China, especially the expansion in the region in terms of CPEC coming up in Pakistan. And this particular visit is happening. In fact, he met Secretary of State. He also met the other senior officials in the Pentagon. Now, there is too much reading as far as this visit is concerned. But what Manoj Gupta is telling us is that Mr. Munir has been told categorically, very clearly, that restrict China only to the CPEC, to the economic corridor. Don't let China take over any of the outpost or the security setup. Don't involve China in the security setup. Also, Mr. Munir has been instructed to start trade and talks with India. So that is something very big, and perhaps we are listening for the first time. So in India also, this particular visit was being criticized, but this is very important to understand that China and America has deep military understanding, a brilliant and amazing military understanding, because both the military of both the countries have been working together for maybe more than 20 years, before the withdrawal of forces in Afghanistan. Now both countries have to sit together and find out new anchors and new common ground to take the relationship forward. In fact, as far as the IMF...
I'm so sorry. I believe we are receiving breaking news we need to move through right now, but thank you. Okay, we're learning right now that the Enforcement Directorate has issued a new set of summons to the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal. We have a reporter joining us in just a few seconds to bring us more context on these developments. This is in the excise policy, the Delhi liquor excise policy case. Shankar Anand with us right now from News 18 India. Shankar Anand ji, हमारे साथ जुड़ने के लिए धन्यवाद. सर, और जानकारी दीजिए प्लीज. शंकर आनंद जी, आप तक मेरी आवाज पहुंच रही है सर? All right, we'll try to re-establish that connection, but I believe these summons have been issued in the excise policy case for the Delhi Chief Minister, and I believe that connection has been established. All right, Shankar Anand ji now with us. Shankar Anand ji, आप हमें और जानकारी दे सकते हैं प्लीज इन summons के बारे में?
देखिए, इस वक्त ये बड़ी खबर कही जा सकती है। केंद्रीय जांच एजेंसी ईडी के द्वारा एक बड़ी कार्रवाई को अंजाम देते हुए दिल्ली के मुख्यमंत्री अरविंद केजरीवाल को पूछताछ का एक और सम्मन भेजा गया है और पूछताछ के लिए उन्हें दिल्ली स्थित ईडी मुख्यालय में बुलाया गया है। हालांकि इससे पहले भी 2 नवंबर को उनको बुलाया गया था पूछताछ के लिए, लेकिन उस वक्त में पूछताछ की प्रक्रिया में हिस्सा लेने के लिए मुख्यमंत्री अरविंद केजरीवाल नहीं आए थे और इस वक्त में हमारे ईडी के जो सूत्र बताते हैं कि उन्हें फिर से पूछताछ के लिए एक सम्मन भेजा गया है और उसके लिए वक्त जो मुकर्रर की गई है वो 21 दिसंबर का वक्त जो है वो मुकर्रर किया गया है, यानी 21 दिसंबर को उनको पूछताछ के लिए बुलाया गया है। और इस वक्त में दिखाना चाहेंगे ईडी मुख्यालय का ये दफ्तर है, यहीं पे पूछताछ के लिए उनको बुलाया गया है और जिस तरह से अगर बात करें कि दिल्ली सरकार की जो पूर्व जो आबकारी नीति मामला है, यानी कि जो लीकर स्कैम से जुड़ा हुआ जो मामला था, इसी मामले में पूछताछ के लिए उनको बुलाया गया है। और अब देखना लाजमी होगा कि क्या दूसरी पूछताछ की जो ये समन्स है, इस पे वो पूछताछ की प्रक्रिया में हिस्सा लेने के लिए आएंगे या नहीं आएंगे। लेकिन इस वक्त की ये बहुत बड़ी खबर कही जा सकती है कि जिस तरह से दिल्ली के मुख्यमंत्री अरविंद केजरीवाल को पूछताछ का समन जारी किया गया है और ये समन केंद्रीय जांच एजेंसी ईडी के द्वारा किया गया है। जी
Okay, Shankar ji, हमारे साथ जुड़े रहिए please. I need to go over to the BJP right now. Harish Khurana from the BJP is with us. Mr. Khurana, audiences may remember back in the beginning of November 3rd, Arvind Kejriwal had responded to the summons by saying that he couldn't appear. At that point, he'd said that the summons themselves were unclear. They appeared to be in the nature of a different inquiry. Now, a new set of summons being issued, sir. Your first response.
He lost in their own course, and I believe if EDS summoned Arvind Kejriwal, he should go and answer whatever the question which has been asked, which is going to be asked by ED. I think he should not evade now, because after what he evaded the questions of ED and